G'day guys, it's Calvin from the Coaching Company New Zealand. It's a quiet day here today. There's no one else here because it's the weekend. But it's a perfect opportunity for me to get in and test this wiring loom that's in front of me. And hopefully we're going to be able to catch up with the future owner of this wiring loom. It might say it's Bud the dog on some of the documentation. Well, Bud the dog has a sc400 in the United States. And Bud the dog's owner, Rob, sent me a friend request on Facebook, as a lot of people do. But I think I've probably spent as much time watching him as he's spent watching me. And he's doing freestyle motocross in the States. And I come from I had a motorbike background as well. I used to race enduros here in New Zealand. And that's part of the reason that I actually got into Lexus V8 engines. It's because of motorbikes. I was racing enduros. I needed a way to get my bike to the meetings safely. And I didn't want to have to unpack when you got home late on a Sunday night. So I ended up buying a high ace van. And they're slow. They're very slow. So I got into Lexus V8s, fitted a Lexus V8, continued riding motorbikes. And my body does show some of the scars from that. But I've also won a couple of national titles in my class. And when I see young guys, I don't actually know how young Rob is, but when I see young guys getting out there and living their dream, Rob's traveling in the USA. He's got a camper van or a vehicle that he's doing up to travel around in, running his motorbikes, freestyle motocross. Life is good, and it's great to see that, and it's really inspiring for me to see that as well. And Rob came to me and he asked me to make a wiring loom for his sc400. One of the first things we do these days is we sit down and I do a bit of a wiring plan. And then I can give it to Jason, and Jason will fire out a loom. And if I don't put it on the plan, Jason doesn't put it in the loom, so I have to get it right. We're going to get in today, and as I said, we're going to test this wiring loom. I've actually already done a video on setting up the haltech, and that might help a few people with the haltech setups. The first thing we're going to do, we have a quick look over the plan. And so in the plan, and of course because it's on my Google Drive, Rob's actually checked it over as well. And I can't unlock my phone. And Jason can access it, I can access it anywhere. And it says approximate price for it, that we're building the loom, and at this point in time the sensors are additional, except for the knock sensors. So there's this little wiring loom here with a couple of Bosch knock sensors and the proper studs for the knock sensors. So that is part of it. We're running an Elite 2500 ECU, which he will get from in the States. And I've got a couple of contacts to get ECUs in the States from as well. What it's covered with, at this point we chose standard injector plugs, but we've made it long enough to be altered if necessary and cut them off. 2-wire idle speed, air temp sensor with the welded grommet, which we'll show you too. The normal can and some boost control and some gearbox wiring. And then it said the normal relays and fuses. But as it turns out, that changed. And our plans sometimes do change. So first step is going to be the knock loom. And a starter loom possibly. Fortunately, Old Yeller actually has the correct knock loom fitted at the moment. So that goes into the starter motor and to the knock sensors. Rob will let me know if he needs the main cable going to the starter motor. This one's probably a little bit longer than normal, but I've got one over in this other engine. We just fitted one to this engine. It goes into the starter motor. It's covered in the heat-proof sleeving. Comes with some spare terminals to crimp on, but nothing actually crimped. It should actually have 3 terminals in there. Yes, there's 3 terminals in there. And that is 2 meters long. That's 6 and a bit feet, nearly 7 feet. for you guys in Bald Eagle land. So with the knock sensor loom fitted under the intake, I'll probably put bolts on that, and with the starter motor loom fitted, and of course you need an earth strap to the engine, we can then fit the main wiring harness. And as you can see, the loom pretty much just lays into position. Down there, and it comes back here for coils, and back this side for coils, and down to the crank sensor down there. At the back here, there's that plug to go into the start loom. There's this little plug here, which has got gearbox written on it, and there's the other side of the connector. There's 4 wires in that. So a power feed, an earth, one back to the ECU for the speed, and one for the reverse. And there's an earth wire here, which needs to be put firmly onto one of the bolts holes on the back of the cylinder head. It is also long enough, if you really wanted to, you could actually flick it round and bolt it to the outside of the cylinder head over there. Okay, I normally go to the back of the cylinder heads though. You'll see it's nice and long, goes all the way to the other bench. Connectors like this, there is a whole lot of info that comes with this loom. There's all these pages here, and I'll put them in the same Google Drive folder. There's the gearbox one, tells me where, what the powers are and where they go, or what the wires do. R8 coils were chosen, so we probably should bang some of those in the hole. And then we just have to plug everything in. This is actually long enough it can go on the inside of the fuel rails. There is a place for the cold start injector there, and it's where we would put the fuel pressure sensor, right in there. This may need a little bit of a bendy out of the way, depending on which model you've got, whether they have that or some are in different spots. Alright, didn't take too long to plug it all in. Core's got a little bit of a loop on. We've got the alternator plugged in on this one. So the alternator loom isn't normal in our looms, that's an extra. Water temp for the gauge, but the cold start isn't used. Now, there's actually a really good chance that Rob isn't going to be using the factory dash. He's probably going to be putting something like an IC7 in it. So to ensure that works properly, we put as much information into the ECU as we can. So we load everything up with sensors. Speed can go into the ECU, fuel pressure, oil pressure, the looms. We've got the oil pressure is on a sub loom, so we can put any sub loom we want. And I suspect Rob is going to go for this one here. So that's just plugs in and it's got the oil pressure sensor on it. I've chosen on this one, and it can go both ways. The loom can come down here through this, down the factory sort of place, or it can come down the side. Old Yella's sporting an aircon pump, which is a little different. Doesn't normally sport an aircon pump. But down to the crank sensor here, and we make sure that can't rub on the crank pulley, and then oil pressure can go in. And it's got reasonable length to go where it needs to go and can be tucked up accordingly. All back there. Being SC, it's going to have the filter out here with the port about there. These R8 coils, you can buy them in a Denso version in the USA. Awesome. And the next one we're doing is going to have the same thing. Earth's done up tight. Okay, I can put the plenum on and throttle body. This is old Yella's throttle body. It's already had the air temp sensor fitted. Oh, dirt on it. And we've just pushed it in with a rubber grommet. However, if you're boosting it, you need the weld-in fitting. One of these. Okay. It can be welded either into the throttle body or into the intake piping, and we've made the wiring long enough to suit. Also the IAC, idle speed control, 2-wire, and we fitted it with an extra a barb. I'll supply an extra barb into the throttle body. Now Rob, if you're boosting it, this can't take boost into the normal breather, so it's a mistake a lot of people make. I've done it myself, so that will end up getting blocked. So if you're doing that, you could actually turn that around if you wanted and use that to supply the IAC, but only if you're boosting, and then of course sort out your PCV and you get your breathers for your tabbet covers. With the knock loom, we have two different options of starter plug. This is the early Sora sc400 one. Okay, so it's important to see if we've got that one. Otherwise, this is the later model molded one. If the starter's been changed and that starter's been fitted, we need to know so we give the correct knock loom. There we go, we're looking like an engine. Throttle body's on. Throttle body's fitted. Air temp sensor's in. And you'll see the loom does come out to the right hand side of the engine, but it's long enough I can fold it over, I can work in my normal position and keep the flames away from me. So I've opted for this relay and fuse box arrangement. Here's our standard 12 pin plug, but I needed a couple of extra outputs, so I've put a 3-pin on here as well. We've got a fuel pump output, a couple of fan outputs. These are a couple of generic outputs, and we'll talk about that soon. I've got a couple of extra relays. And this one heads off to the dash. The main two to worry about is input power and start. And then there's a couple for those extra relays and an earth. If Rob was doing a normal dash, we do have these wires over here, these two. And in there we've got a water temp, an oil pressure, there's a power and an earth. And those power and earth can be used if using the extra can output on the haltech, which is in here. And then a few outputs from the ECU. Things like tacho and speedo and stuff could be run from these. And there's that reverse light in there as well. Chances are they won't be used, and he'll just run the IC7 dash. This one here, battery power. Everything's plugged in, engine's plugged in, let's make it go. Orange wire's power, this one for fuel pump, green is the starter. And another one's a runner. Old Yella had just been rated for injectors, so it's had a different set of injectors put in it, and so it took a little bit just to get it going first time, but away it went, and it runs pretty good. There is some normal setup that needs to be done when you first put the loom on. Calibrate the TPS, check that the sensors are reading where they're meant to. So I've already gone through and checked them as close as I could. but it does pay just to check that all the temperature sensors are reading about the right temperature, and that the fuel pressure is reading the right fuel pressure around about, and the oil pressure is reading around about right. And a quick glance over to the settings. I've done the most as I can in the shop, but of course it's on old yellow, which is a working knowing engine. So it still pays to do a little bit of that commissioning setup. I'm really happy with that. Rob will be happy. A couple of things we've added to this one. This little plug here. That is a output from the ECU and a power supply. Boost control when it goes turbo. A little hint of what Rob might be up to. This is our CAN output plug. Same as the one that's inside the ECU, but that can run a CAN lambda, and there is a terminating resistor here, which if you're running a dash, that can actually be unplugged. A little bit of setup done. And ready to make it go again. I got a little bit more setup, just a bit of checking, and then I'll peel it off the engine and put it in a box ready to go to the USA. Hope that's been helpful. Talk to you again soon. We'll catch you later.